Two fossil hunters, out in the Badlands of Montana, looking for traces of what once lived here. Bones, history, ghosts of the past. But what they found in the cave near Fort Peck Lake wasn't from the past at all. It was alive, breathing through holes in its chest, moving through darkness and stone as if it lived there for centuries. What began as a search for fossils became a desperate struggle to escape something that had been waiting deep below. Around here, the locals have a name for it. They call it the Thing in Hell Creek Cave. Welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. I don't know what kind of thing it was we ran into, but I can't stop thinking about it. I still have dirt from that cave under my nails. It's been 3 months, and my partner won't even pick up my calls anymore. My name's Cal. I'm from Billings, Montana. I've hunted fossils in the Hell Creek Formation for almost 10 years. Mostly small digs, nothing that'd make the news. My buddy Eli and I started working together after meeting through a collector's forum. He's younger, early 30s, quiet but smart about rock layers and soil types. He can look at a bluff and tell you which stratum you're standing on. This started in late May near Fort Peck Lake, on the south side, about 2 miles west of Hell Creek Road. It's open land managed by the Bureau of Reclamation. We weren't trespassing. We had the day-use permits and planned to camp 2 nights. The day we found the opening, the weather had turned. Wind coming off the lake, about 60 degrees, cloudy enough that you couldn't tell what time it was without checking your phone. The ground was soft and red-brown, and every boot step left a hollow print that filled with water. We'd been following a dry wash where I'd seen fossil fragments the year before, turtle shell pieces and a few plant impressions. Eli was up on the ridge above me when he yelled. The way he said my name, short, urgent, made me think he'd slipped or found something worth money. I climbed up, breathing hard, and saw him kneeling next to a narrow split in the rock. It looked like an old fault line someone had tried to seal with concrete decades ago. The fill had broken away, leaving a crack about shoulder width that disappeared into darkness. Warm air pushed out of it, not a draft, but a steady breath. It fogged his glasses. "You feel that?" he asked. I crouched beside him. The air smelled wet, like limestone after rain, but deeper than that was something metallic. Not rot, exactly. Just wrong. He said maybe there was geothermal activity below, some pocket venting heat. But this wasn't volcanic country. We tossed a pebble in. It clattered a few times, then nothing. Deep. Eli wanted to go back the next day with rope, helmets, lights, the whole setup. I told him we should log the coordinates first. He took a photo on his phone with GPS tagging, and we went back to camp. That night, the sound started. It wasn't loud, but constant, a clicking rhythm carried by the wind. It came from the ridge. I thought it was an insect chorus or maybe dripping water echoing from the crack. But the pattern never changed. Click, 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 pause, then again, faster. Eli heard it too and joked it sounded like a woodpecker trapped underground. We laughed for a minute, then it just kept going. We didn't sleep much. Sorry for the interruption. I just want to say thank you for being here and supporting Weird Encounters. YouTube hasn't been showing my videos to as many people lately, so if you're enjoying this story or the channel, please take a second to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really helps more people discover these stories and keeps this community growing. I truly appreciate your help. Now let's get back to the story. The next morning, we geared up. We had 2 100-foot ropes, carbide helmets, 2 LED headlamps, and backup lights. I carried a handheld gas meter for oxygen and carbon dioxide. Everything read normal. The entrance angle was steep, maybe 45 degrees, leading into a tight chute that widened after 10 feet. I went first. My boots hit mud that sucked at my ankles. The light barely reached ahead. The walls were slick and almost glossy. I thought maybe calcite deposits, but they didn't sparkle. They just absorbed the beam like wet skin. Eli followed with a rope line anchored to a boulder outside. The warmth grew stronger the deeper we went, and the smell got sharper, like blood and rust. After 20 yards, the tunnel flattened into a low corridor. We had to crouch. That's when I first saw the holes. Hundreds of them in the walls, round and smooth, no bigger than a dime. Air pulsed through each one in rhythm. If I held my hand close, I could feel heat and moisture exhaling. Eli leaned close and said he could hear faint hissing, almost like breathing. We stopped talking for a while. The corridor opened into a pocket chamber. There were bones on the floor, small animal mostly, rabbit or fox, but fresh. No fossilization, no mineral coating. The marrow inside was still red. Some were gnawed smooth, others snapped clean through. None looked more than a few weeks old. Eli's light caught something shiny farther in, a curve of white under mud. We moved closer. It was a partial skull, maybe deer, polished smooth and arranged upright like a display. Around it were more bones, stacked and interlocked like woven baskets. It wasn't random. Someone, or something, had arranged them. We both said, "What the hell," at the same time. He wanted photos. I wanted to get out. Before he could pull his phone out, the clicking started again, not echoing from outside this time, but inside the chamber. Faster now, almost vibrating. I swung the light around. Nothing moved, but the sound didn't echo the way normal caves do. It felt like it was coming from inside the walls. We backed out slow, leaving the rope line in place. My watch said we'd only been underground 20 minutes, but the air felt heavy enough that it could have been hours. When we reached daylight, the gas meter alarmed for low O2 for a second, then cleared. Eli said it must have glitched. Back at camp, he pulled up the photos, all black. Not dark, just black, like something absorbed the flash. Even the metadata showed the shots existed, but there was no image. He wanted to go back the next day with a better camera. I told him I wasn't sure. But curiosity is stronger than fear when you've spent your life chasing things buried in dirt. That night, the clicks came again, closer now. The rhythm echoed against the truck bed. Around 2 a.m., I heard something drag against the tent fabric, soft, deliberate, like a wet palm sliding down canvas. I unzipped the flap and flashed my light. Nothing. But there were prints in the dirt, not boot prints, not paws. Long finger marks with no nails, each about 5 inches. The spacing suggested something crawling. Eli said maybe raccoons. I didn't argue. We went back just after dawn. He brought a DSLR with a flash rig and an audio recorder. We checked the anchor, then descended again. This time we followed the same route to the bone chamber, but something had changed. The air was hotter, and the clicking was gone. That silence was worse. Eli moved forward with the camera, taking bursts. I watched our backs. After maybe 2 minutes, he froze. "There's another tunnel," he said. I stepped beside him and saw it, a narrow slit half hidden by the bone nest. The bones had been rearranged overnight, piled higher, creating a kind of funnel. He lifted a femur out to clear space, and that's when something exhaled from the darkness beyond. Not air, a wet, vibrating breath. The smell hit me so hard I gagged. My headlamp beam caught movement deep inside that slit. Something thin slid back, soundless except for the wet drag of skin on rock. Eli whispered, "Did you see that?" I nodded. We both started backing up. Then the clicking returned, not distant, but right behind us. I turned. My light hit the wall, and it wasn't a wall anymore. Something unfolded from it, pale and stretched thin, like the rock itself was peeling off. Its chest was open, not torn, just built that way. Dozens of holes where a torso should be. Each hole flexed as it breathed, air whistling out in small bursts. The head was smooth, no eyes, no mouth, just two slits that flared with every click. When it moved, the sound bounced through the chamber, mapping everything: us, the bones, the air. Eli raised the camera and the flash went off. The creature convulsed, smashing itself backward against the rock. The flash disoriented it. I grabbed his arm. "Go!" We ran, crawling, slipping in mud, the rope slapping at our knees. Behind us, the clicks became frantic, overlapping, like there were more than one. Something scraped against the tunnel ceiling, showering dirt. I saw daylight ahead, a thin line. The gas meter shrieked low oxygen again, but I didn't stop. We climbed the slope and burst into open air, gasping. The rope jerked behind us once, hard enough to pull it taut. Then it went slack. When I looked back, the hole was steaming. We cut the rope and left it there. I didn't plan to go back there. I swore I wouldn't. But 2 weeks after that second descent, I found myself packing the truck again. I don't know if it was obsession, guilt, or curiosity, maybe all three. Eli stopped answering my calls after the night we got out. The days after we left that cave felt wrong. When I got home to Billings, everything looked normal, but sound behaved strange. My refrigerator motor clicked, same rhythm as the cave. The wind under the door clicked. My brain started expecting it, like waiting for a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I kept telling myself it was paranoia, but I couldn't stop thinking about those holes in the cave walls, hundreds of them breathing. Then I got a text from Eli. "Something's in the basement." I heard it breathing. That was the last message I ever got from him. I drove to his place the next morning. He lived in a duplex south of town, basement access through the back. His truck was gone. The neighbor said he'd left around midnight with 2 duffel bags, didn't say where he was going. Inside his apartment, there were holes punched through the drywall, small, round ones, just like in the cave. A screwdriver on the floor, the smell of wet earth. I left right then. For a week I tried to forget. I buried myself in prep work, cleaning fossils, answering collectors online. But I kept hearing that slow exhale when the furnace kicked on, not from the vents, from inside the walls. I thought maybe there was an animal trapped in there. I knocked on the drywall. Something knocked back. That's when I decided I had to go back to Hell Creek. Not for Eli, not for proof. I just needed to know if the cave was still there. I didn't go alone. I called Derek Hall, a friend from Miles City who sometimes helped with digs. Ex-Marine, not superstitious, but cautious. I told him I'd found an unusual cave system that might hold unrecorded specimens. I left out the part about breathing walls. He brought a third guy, Matt Ricks, a local geology student who wanted field hours. We left on June 19th. The forecast said storms, but we went anyway. When we reached the site, I almost didn't recognize it. The ridge had slumped. The original crack was covered by rockfall, like the land had sealed itself shut. But the smell was there, that iron tang, and the ground was warm. Matt said maybe the collapse had exposed a vent from deeper underground. Derek poked around with a shovel until he found a small gap beneath a boulder. When he moved it, warm air hissed out, same slow, pulsing rhythm. I knew it immediately. The cave had moved. We widened the gap enough to crawl through. The air inside shimmered with humidity, and our lights hit wet rock after just a few feet. The tunnel was narrower than before, slicker. The walls flexed slightly when you brushed them. Not soft, but not solid either. Derek noticed it too. "Feels like skin," he said. We followed the passage maybe 30 feet before it forked. The left path was the direction of the old chamber, but it looked different now. Walls smoothed, no sharp edges, almost like the place had been rebuilt. Matt stayed near the entrance, marking coordinates. Derek and I pushed ahead. The heat grew worse with every step. My gas meter beeped low O2, then normalized, then dipped again. like the air itself was breathing. We reached what I thought might be the old chamber. The bone piles were gone. Instead, there were impressions in the mud, perfect outlines of bones that had once been there, like something had absorbed them into the floor. Derek said, "This doesn't feel right. Rocks don't do this." Then the clicking started again. It began faint, maybe 20 clicks per minute. Then faster, louder, bouncing off the walls until it felt like being surrounded by 100 metronomes. Matt shouted from behind us that he could hear it too, but from his side of the fork. I called for him to come back. No answer, just clicks. Then a wet scrape. Derek turned his light back down the tunnel and froze. "Jesus, Cal," he whispered. Something was coming, slow but steady, folding itself through the passage like it didn't have bones. The light hit its chest, and I saw the holes again, all opening and closing, pumping. Every breath whistled like wind through reeds. It wasn't one of them this time. There were two, maybe three. The sound merged, layers of clicks and hisses bouncing off each other. Derek pulled his pistol. I told him not to shoot. The sound might set them off. He ignored me. The shot went off, deafening. The echo blasted down the tunnel. The creatures spasmed, their chests flaring wide, air bursting from every hole. The light went crazy in the mist, like flash photography inside a storm. Something grabbed Derek by the leg and yanked him backward. The grip was strong enough to drag his boot off. He fired again, screaming. I ran toward him and swung my flashlight at whatever held him and hit flesh. It gave under the impact, slick and elastic. The sound it made wasn't like pain. It was like air escaping from lungs too big for the body. I grabbed Derek's jacket and pulled him up the slope. We stumbled back to the fork. Matt was gone. Just his headlamp on the ground, still shining. I don't remember crawling out. I just remember the cold air hitting my face and the sky flashing with lightning. Derek collapsed outside, his leg bleeding where something had peeled away skin in long strips, like suction marks. We drove straight to Fort Peck Medical Center. Derek refused to tell them what happened, said he slipped into a crevice. The nurse said the wounds looked like burns, circular, even spacing. They kept him overnight for infection. I sat in the truck, window down, listening to the storm. Every time thunder rolled, I thought I heard the clicking underneath it, faint but there. When the rain stopped around 2 a.m., the air smelled metallic again. I turned on the truck's interior light and saw mud across the floor mat, not from our boots. The pattern looked like handprints, long fingers. I wiped it away, started the engine, and drove until sunrise. Derek called 2 days later. He said the doctor found something in one of the wounds, a fragment of bone, thin as glass, wedged under the skin. He mailed it to me in a plastic vial before he left town. Said he was done with the field. I still have that piece. It's smooth, hollow, and when you put it to your ear, you can hear air moving inside it. Steady, faint, like breathing. I shouldn't have gone back again, but after Derek left the hospital, he vanished too. The sheriff said he checked out, paid cash for a motel in Glasgow, and was gone the next morning. They found his rental car abandoned at a fishing access near the lake. No sign of him. I didn't tell them about the cave. I just said we were surveying rock formations. But the guilt was sitting heavy. Matt was still missing, and I couldn't stop seeing that flashlight lying on the cave floor. I spent the next week trying to convince myself not to do it. I cleaned the shop, boxed fossils, even drove east for a couple of days. But every time I turned off the truck, I heard it, faint clicking from the vents. Always 3 beats, pause, 3 beats again. I'd check the air filter and find fine red dust, the same color as the cave walls. On July 1st, I packed up again. I told no one. I brought new gear, a fresh headlamp and spare batteries, a GoPro strapped to my chest, an industrial respirator, a shotgun with slugs, extra rope, and a chemical light kit. The plan was simple: get in, find Matt, or any sign of him, and get out. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about him anymore. I needed to see what was breathing under there. The drive out took 4 hours. By the time I reached the site, the sky had that strange, dull color you only see before hail, greenish, heavy. The ridge looked different again, like the land itself was shifting. The original crack was gone, but there were 3 new vents within 50 yards, all steaming faintly. The air coming from them was rhythmic. Same pattern. Inhale. Exhale. I picked the largest one and set an anchor. The descent was almost vertical for the first 30 feet, slick with condensation. I could feel the vibration of air moving past my boots. The deeper I went, the stronger the smell of metal and rot. My oxygen meter flickered but didn't alarm. At the bottom, the tunnel leveled into a passage tall enough to stand. My light reflected off wet surfaces, not rock anymore, not exactly. It looked organic, with faint ridges running along it like muscle fibers. When I touched it, the wall flexed slightly, just enough that I pulled my hand back. The sound came from everywhere, clicks bouncing so fast they blurred into a steady hum. It wasn't random, it was communication. I marked the path with glow sticks every 20 feet. The floor was littered with bits of bone, not whole skeletons, just shards. Many were hollowed through the center, as if something had drawn out the marrow with precision. After about 100 yards, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. My light barely reached the far side. The air shimmered with heat. The ceiling dripped condensation, and below it, bones. Thousands of them. They weren't in piles anymore. They were part of the structure. The walls themselves were built from fused skeletons, ribs woven into archways, spines forming support columns. The floor was soft, layered in mud and crushed fragments. In the center stood a mound, maybe 12 feet high, pulsing faintly, breathing. I lifted the camera and started recording. My voice on playback later would shake so bad you can barely hear the words, "Something's alive down here." The whole room's moving. The mound wasn't solid. It shifted, slow and rhythmic. Every few seconds it exhaled through hundreds of tiny holes that whistled like wind through reeds. And inside those holes were bones, arranged like veins. When I moved closer, the surface trembled. The clicking stopped. Then a single deep exhale filled the chamber, long and wet, like lungs the size of a truck releasing air after years underwater. I froze. My headlamp beam swept across the mound and caught something pale rising from the top. It unfurled, stretching limbs that weren't really limbs, more like extensions of the mound itself. The hollowback, bigger than before, taller than any man, its skin so thin you could see fluids moving underneath. The chest cavity opened wide, dozens of holes pulsing in unison. The air pressure dropped. My ears popped. The creature tilted its head toward me, or what passed for a head, and the clicking started again, but slower this time, deliberate, scanning. Each click echoed off my chest, my gear, the walls behind me. It was mapping me, building a picture in sound. I raised the shotgun. The thing inhaled. The holes across its torso flared wide, and I realized it wasn't breathing. It was drawing air from every direction, pulling it through the nest. The bones around me started to rattle, vibrating. Dust poured down. I fired. The blast echoed so hard it hurt. The slug hit center mass, tearing through the holes. But instead of bleeding, the thing exhaled violently, blowing hot air across me like a furnace. The recoil sent me backward into the mud. Then the walls answered. From the sides of the chamber, smaller shapes began peeling away. 4, maybe 5 of them, crawling low, translucent and thin. Their chests flickered like fireflies as they breathed. I scrambled to my feet, fired again. The light from the muzzle flashed across the chamber and showed what I hadn't seen before. The ceiling was covered in cocoons, dozens of them, each one pulsing faintly. Inside, silhouettes twitched. One of them burst open from the gun's shockwave. What fell out wasn't an egg. It was a body. Matt, or what was left of him. His skin was gray, his chest hollow, ribs open. his face half dissolved, eyes gone. Tubes of cartilage ran from his torso up into the ceiling, merging with the nest. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just stared. The hollowback shifted closer, its torso expanding, exhaling a deep moan that shook the bones beneath my boots. I fired again, blindly, then grabbed my rope line and ran. The tunnel wasn't the same. The walls flexed with every breath of the thing below, as if the entire cave were alive, pushing air in waves. The clicking turned frantic, overlapping, surrounding me. My headlamp dimmed. I pulled a flare and lit it, filling the tunnel with red light. The creatures flinched. Their translucent bodies glowed against the walls. I saw at least 6 now, all writhing backward from the flare, retreating into cracks. I climbed the rope, hand over hand, slipping in the condensation. Every few feet, the rope jerked, as if something was tugging from below. When I finally reached the surface, the night was silent. No wind, just steam rising from the vent. I rolled onto my back and listened. No clicks, no breath, only the sound of my own heartbeat. Then, faintly, from deep below, one last exhale. I drove straight home, didn't even take off my gear. I locked the doors, boarded the basement windows, and dumped the footage from the GoPro onto my laptop. Half of it was static. The rest showed fragments, bone walls, the nest pulsing, and that brief second when the flare went off. In that frame, dozens of faces stared back. Not alive, but preserved in the walls, human, animal, some unrecognizable. Like the cave itself was built from what it consumed. I backed up the footage onto a hard drive and hid it. 2 nights later, the drive was gone. The box it was in was open, and there was dust on the floor. Red dust, like from the cave. The next morning, the sound started again. Click, click, click. In the vents, in the walls. Always 3 beats. Pause. Then again. I haven't gone back. But the land around Fort Peck keeps changing. Locals talk about sinkholes opening overnight, whole ridges collapsing. Some fishermen said they've seen steam rising from the water on still mornings, carrying a smell like rust. Sometimes I wonder if the cave was ever really a cave. Maybe it was something older, something alive that never stopped growing. The sheriff's office still lists Eli and Matt as missing. Derek's car turned up 2 states away in North Dakota, empty. Nobody connects it to Fort Peck. Nobody's talking about the noises. But I keep hearing them, and I'm not the only one. Farmers south of the lake complained about wells collapsing overnight. Groundwater turned reddish, metallic. The local paper blamed mineral leaching from shale. Then dogs started disappearing. A rancher near Sand Creek said he found holes punched through his stock tank, neat circles like drill bits, and the cows wouldn't drink anymore. I knew that smell the moment I read it. Iron and rot. Every few nights, when the wind blew east, the air carried a low hum. Not loud enough for most people to notice, but steady. The same frequency as those clicks in the cave, drawn out into a single tone. I called the bureau office in Glasgow. They said minor sinkholes were normal after heavy rain. I asked if anyone was mapping subsurface vents. The man laughed and said, "Hell Creek breathes all the time." That sentence stuck with me. I tried to get rid of everything, sold my fossil prep gear, packed the specimens into storage, burned my clothes from that day. The smell wouldn't leave. At night, I started hearing the clicking again, from the heating ducts, the water pipes, even the floorboards. I crawled under the house once with a flashlight. The dirt was damp. Small round holes dotted the soil, all exhaling warm air in slow pulses. I filled them with concrete the next morning. By evening, new ones had opened 6 inches away. I left the house and checked into a cheap motel off I-90. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. 3 nights later, someone knocked on my door. Not a normal knock. 3 quick taps, pause, 3 again. The same rhythm. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. Just darkness. When I opened the door, warm air rushed in like a furnace. The hall light flickered. Down by the ice machine, a shape moved, thin, bent, almost translucent under the yellow bulb. It wasn't tall, maybe 5 feet, but the way it turned made my stomach twist. The chest rose and fell through open holes, breathing. I slammed the door and shoved a chair under the handle. The clicking started on the other side, faster now, the sound bouncing through the thin walls until everything vibrated. Then silence. When I finally looked again, the hallway was empty, but the carpet was wet. I checked out before sunrise and drove west. I ended up near the dam. It was early August. The water level was down from drought, and parts of the lake bed had cracked open into wide fissures. Steam drifted up in patches. I parked near a maintenance road and walked to one of the exposed areas. The cracks weren't random. They formed circles, perfect, overlapping rings like nests. Inside each ring were bones, small ones, birds, fish, maybe rodents, arranged deliberately. I heard the clicking before I saw them, dozens of short bursts from beneath the surface. The sound rippled through the mud. Then the ground trembled. A section of lake bed deflated, releasing a huge exhale of hot air that smelled like metal and rot. The mud under my boots moved, pulsing. And for the first time I realized what I was standing on wasn't earth. It was living tissue covered in silt. I backed away slow, camera shaking in my hand. Another vent opened 20 feet to my left, then another. The hum built again, low, deep, almost like a generator spooling up underground. Something massive shifted below. I ran. I don't think the hollowbacks live in one cave. I think the entire Hell Creek Formation is a single organism, or a network of them, using the fossil beds as structure. Those holes weren't just breathing, they were feeding, drawing air, heat, and whatever they catch on the surface. The fossils we've been digging up for decades might not all be ancient. Some could be the remains of what they've been building with. That's why the bones were fresh. That's why nothing fossilized. When we fired those guns underground, we woke something larger, maybe the core of it, and now it's spreading through the soft shale. I feel that every new vent, every collapse, every sinkhole is like another mouth. I'm writing this from a storage unit outside Lewistown. I haven't slept much lately. If anyone reads or hears this message, stay away from Fort Peck. Don't camp near the shore. Don't dig in the Badlands. If you hear clicking in the ground, don't move, don't breathe, because if it hears you, it will never stop hunting you. Maybe it was curiosity that led them there, or something older, pulling them in like gravity. 2 men who went looking for the past, and instead found something that never should have survived it. The locals still talk about the sounds in those tunnels, the scraping, the slow breathing, like air moving through broken glass. Most people don't go near Hell Creek anymore, and those who do never stay after dark, because whatever's in Hell Creek Cave isn't finished. It just begun. And so, another strange encounter fades away. A trick of the mind, or something far more unsettling. That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.